Next, we'll talk about flexibility, which is the second coordinate in Olson's circumplex model. So flexibility is about the amount of change in leadership, relationships, roles, and rules. So how much flexibility you have in terms of who leads the family, who does the decision making, who takes care of things. Also the relationships between members, the roles, the purpose and function of individual family members, and then the rules, the behaviors that are expected of them or accepted, good or bad. All of these things gauge how flexible or non-flexible you are, is where you fall in the categories that we're about to talk about. Now, roles and rules can also be connected, so the role that you perform in a family might dictate the rules that you have as an individual. So if you're the person who's the comic relief in the family, then you might have different rules than a family member who really performs the role of the peacekeeper and the one who gives guidance, because they could be more serious. At any rate, how flexible you are is where you'll be on these levels. So the first level, the lowest level in flexibility, is rigid. Name's very intuitive. So rigid is the lowest level. It means that the family has very little change. They are consistent day in, day out, year after year. They don't change. They're very authoritarian. Authoritarian leadership, don't confuse it with authoritative. Authoritarian is so rigid, very strict. Authoritarian parents say things like, I'm the parent, that's why. Why do you think that rule's in place? Because I'm the parent and I say so. I'm the mom, I say so. Authoritarian moms say that. Authoritative, which I've written here just as a thing, authoritative is for a parent who has rules but says things like, well, this is the reason why I have this rule, to keep you safe, or so that you learn this, or to help other people, or, I want you to have the skill. They explain it. Authoritarian, I don't need to explain anything. I'm the boss. That's how it goes. So those are usually what we see in more rigid households. And then just so you know, the laissez-faire parent is a very permissive parent. We'll talk about that later in the semester. So the rigid has low levels of change, authoritarian leadership, and very strict roles and rules. There's no wiggle room in a rigid household. The next family type is structured. So structured have very moderate change and they have limited shared decision making. So parents and children, for instance, might talk a little bit about where do we think we should go for our vacation, or what kind of new dog should we get. So little decisions, right, that may or may not be considered. And then same with the leadership. So maybe an older sibling can look after a younger one, but it's a tiny bit. And they're a little bit willing to change. They'll be a bit flexible, especially based on what other family members are what each other is thinking. But they're pretty stable in their roles and rules. You can depend that the rules, and they're not going to change. People fulfill their role in a family and they stick to it. And the rules that are here today are probably going to be in place a year from now, and they're probably going to be consistent for most of the family members. Structured is very healthy. Next is the flexible family, third, so pretty high, third level, pretty high, has the same level as the continuum. So flexible have high levels of and high openness to change. So they're willing to change. They're open to that. And by proxy, then they do change more. They'll change their mind about stuff. In a flexible household, a parent will say, I know that the rule was you couldn't be out past 10. But you know what? I understand that this is a special circumstance. Whoops. This is a special circumstance that you are going to be at church camp. Stay, have fun, go, spread the word, spread the gospel. Or I understand that this is a really rare opportunity for you to go meet the basketball player that you have idolized your whole life. Yeah, go. So they're open to change, and they'll be flexible. They also share decision making. So they might say, a parent might say to their teen, well, what do you think would be a good curfew? And what do you think I should do if you break the rules of curfew? And if that teen says, oh, I think I should be able to stay out all night, it doesn't mean they're going to say, sure, stay out all night, but it means they involve them a lot more, and it's more commonplace than it is in a structured family. And finally, the chaotic family has very high levels of change, so much that you really can't even say that they have rules or rules a lot, because sometimes they'll have a rule, then they won't. Rules will come and go. Roles will come and go. Sorry, that should say rules and roles, not rules and rules. There's changing leadership all the time, whoever's around, whoever can do it. Inconsistency is the name of the game with the chaotic household. So their flexibility is so much that there's no consistency there. Just like in the previous batch of slides, structured and flexible are considered optimal, with flexible being even more optimum than structured. So here's some examples. The rigid home. This is from a movie I've never seen, but I really like this actor, and the picture displays it well. He is very stern. It looks like he's a drill sergeant here, right, in a family environment. Clearly putting them through the ringer. It looks like maybe they're going to do some physical activities in a minute. Very strict and very different. You can see even the way that they're standing here. He's the boss. They're supposed to listen to him. Structured, moving up the line now. Structured is like Marlin and Finding Nemo, so limited shared decision making among these two clownfish, especially at first. He doesn't let Nemo do much of anything. He's pretty protective, but then as the movie goes on, he becomes more structured, he becomes more flexible, less authoritarian. And we also see this in families, that as children age, a common theme is to back off on the rigidity. So slightly different, the structured from the flexible. Here the flexible, in this portrayal, the dad has allowed his daughter to have some of the decision making and is open to change. In this particular movie, this teenage woman gets pregnant, and the dad is, you can see the way he's looking at her, is definitely not pleased, but he also talks with her about it and really treats her in many ways as a grown-up. So those are the structured and flexible. Similar, but just gives you a little distinction between them. Here we go. Here is that chaotic, wild. I haven't seen this show, but this is a show called Shameless, and it's about a family. They're very disengaged. Okay, they're distant. So these individuals, I imagine, saying we live together, we share DNA, but so in this household, the father's an alcoholic, and the older daughter takes a bunch of the parenting responsibilities on, but they are just, there's no consistency there. Okay, that would be the chaotic family and not associated with many positive outcomes. You may have noticed some big gender trends. When we talked about all the cohesion stuff, there were a lot of female examples. When we talked about the flexibility